The affidavit is released. Kind of. Mostly not released, actually. And we'll go over it. We'll actually look down through the affidavit, see how much of it looks like a barcode, how much of it looks like a zebra, and how much they actually came out of it. And honestly, looking through it, and I read through what little bit I could read through off of it, and it's kind of damning to the FBI themselves. And honestly, this is opinion. This is not Green Check verified fact. I think it would probably be better for the FBI if they released the fully unredacted, because yeah, the redacted part is not good for them, but we'll talk about that and where that goes and what that means for that. In other news, Elizabeth Warren says that she is afraid that the Fed is going to throw the economy into a recession. Almost a full month after we are officially declared in a recession. But we'll be talking about that, what that means, and where we go from there. A series of billboards in San Francisco have warned California residents not to move to Texas, so we'll be talking about that and possibly saying, no, if you're in San Francisco, maybe you really shouldn't move to Texas, but we'll talk a bit about that, what that means, and where we go from there. And lastly, a female Colorado social worker is accused of making sexual advances towards clients and threatening to take their kids if the women do not capitulate. It is going to be all this and more. This portion is redacted. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Now see, if the music in the Dark World and Link to the Past was like that, I think more people in Hyrule would have wanted to go to the Dark World. I don't think they would have seen it as a scary place where, you know, you might get trapped in something that your heart reflects and you can't defend yourself and people warp it to make it what it is. I think that if the music was like that, it'd be like, cool, I want to go over there and relax and chill. It's a good mix. I like that, by the way. T. Lopez over on the Video Game Study Lounge. We've got a lot of news to get to today here. I got a little bit of a late start just because organizing this massive stack and trying to keep stuff separated so we didn't have two from the same outlet right in a row was quite the, it was yeoman's task, to tell you the truth. And actually, I couldn't do it. I have 4 instances up on the stack where we're grabbing from the same outlet twice in a row. So nothing could be done about this, but we've got a lot to get to today. So let's get started over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out all the great people who are getting ready to start more news by the common man for the common man. I know Tim and Ben and them are starting to get into taking the culture back from the mainstreamers, but again, Ben Shapiro is Harvard educated, rich boy lawyer from Los Angeles, and then goes out and lives in Boston for Harvard, and now he pretends that he's a regular man by going out and living in Florida. And Tim, well, let's just say I don't trust his, I was an airport worker and I didn't finish high school and I'm doing this completely grassroots. I don't trust that shtick. I don't think either one of them are. And they're both very good people, although I think Tim might have ripped off my student loan thing. Maybe I'll talk about that one day. Maybe we'll play both the videos side by side. Maybe we'll see if we can actually get away with playing a Tim Pool video on here. But I was listening to him on Friday and listening to his proposal for student debt, and I'm like, dude, that's the same proposal that I put out 3 years ago, back when I still had short hair. I'll do some, maybe I'll link that in the Discord. Maybe that'll be my encouragement to get all of you in the Discord. So you guys can go play both videos side by side. I'll link them both in there and say, hey, who did it first? But anyway, go check out great creators such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. KTZed just put out a stream on one of the Kim Jong-un siblings who was accused of murder yesterday. I caught bits and pieces of it, but I was spending most of my time yesterday while it was on with sweat literally dripping down my face on the elliptical, so I didn't get as much out of that as I should have, unfortunately, so I'll have to go back and go check that out again. Also, check out PJ Patriot, who just had KTZed on. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks podcast. Check out all those great creators out there because they are doing the Lord's work, bringing you news and culture by the common man for the common man. So go check out all of them, and let's get started into finance for the day. Starting in with the Dow. The Dow took a tumble throughout the day yesterday, down to 32,283.40, the previous close being at 33,291.78. So we are down over 1,000 points on the Dow as of yesterday. Let me actually get the feed up here so you guys can see what we're doing. And let's set the screen up to the right screen. Hang on, we're having technical difficulties. Must have been when, yeah, there we go. We had a bit of a power outage yesterday, and it killed both of my screens. And typically when it happens like that, power outages make Streamlabs do very, very crazy stuff. So, yeah, I had the screen was set to a completely different screen than what it was supposed to be. It was going over to my left screen. You would have seen my music playlist if I would have gone up just with that. All right. Looking at the Dow, yes, the Dow dropped 1,000 points throughout the day yesterday. It sounds like they're not real happy about what happened with Jerome Powell's Jackson Hole speech, so we'll be talking just a bit about that. But yeah, we're going to continue to watch that and see if we come into the midterms with people's 401ks up or down, and I'm anticipating that that's going to be down. On the Bitcoin, that's also not good news right now, although it seems to be clawing back. On the 1 day, the Bitcoin is up to 19,908.90. Up 337.6 US dollars, or 1.72% throughout the day. But looking at the 5 day, you can see that we are below the 20,000 mark, and it looks like Bitcoin took a pretty significant dump on Friday, dropping as we first saw on early Friday, dropping down and then just continuing to falter throughout the day on Friday. So going into the weekend, coming into its lowest point at just above 19.5 yesterday, and then clawing its way back up to 19,908. So it's possible, depending on what the markets do throughout the day, that Bitcoin can bring itself back up above 20,000. But for those of you who are interested in holding Bitcoin, it is on sale right now. That's how I always say it, because, you know, it's not as effective as gold or silver. It's a very, very good looking asset. If you do need to go and put something into an asset that you hopefully can make some money on, but can still liquidate fairly quickly, it's still very, very good for that. But as far as gold, silver, and lead, those are things that you should still be holding on to. But it's interesting to watch because it's one of the easiest ones to get cash back out of. So it's kind of a good short-term idea of what the economy is going to do. Looking in at gas, the gas prices are good news at least. Coming up, and they keep bringing Lodi into this, and I keep saying Lodi is the low price leader. Lodi is, because we're looking at the Madison area, Lodi is, how far is Lodi from Madison? No, not Lodi, California. Why the hell would I go to Lodi, California? "26 miles. No, they're still trying to send me to Lodi, California. It's 26 miles from Madison to Lodi. So I wouldn't even call this. Lodi's in Columbia County. But we're still seeing 316 and 318 in Lodi itself. Looking at Madison proper, Sun Prairie, which is only a couple miles outside of Madison, is at 329. Middleton, west side Madison, 334. So we're seeing some good news coming off the prices. Down here, I know it's in the 330s as well. Not fantastic, but back to a point where 20 bucks will actually get you somewhere again. Not very far, but it'll get you somewhere. So we'll continue to watch that, see where that goes, and what happens with the economy because of it. Let's see what Investors Business Daily has to say for the morning. Dow futures fall, big test for indices as market rally feels Fed Chief Powell's pain. From Ed Carson. Dow futures fell solidly Monday morning, along with the S&P and the Nasdaq. The stock market rally suffered a significant weekly loss again last week, with Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell saying Friday that more pain is needed to bring down inflation. The major indices sold off on Friday, moving back towards a 50-day moving average. Several stocks that flashed buy signals Thursday, such as Axcelis Technologies, tumbled back on Friday. Some, such as Steel Dynamics, did not. Investors should be cautious about adding exposure to markets still retreating. They need to step back if they become too exposed or brought extended stocks in recent days. However, the current pain for the market rally could be setting up opportunities for big gains. Though when is unclear, a number of stocks are forming handles, while others are working on bases or possibly tracking towards bullish pullbacks. Sounds like some cope to me. Apple and Arista Networks have forged handles. In a recent pullback, Apple and Arista are no longer quite so extended from key moving averages. Tesla, meanwhile, is trading tightly around some key levels. Axcelis stock and Steel Dynamics are on the IBD leaderboard. Steel Dynamics is also on Swing Trader. Arista Networks and Tesla are on the IBD 50 list. Arista and Steel Dynamics are on the Big Cap 20. Arista was Friday's IBD stock of the day, with Apple and Steel Dynamics the picks for the prior 2 days. Meanwhile, China stocks Pinduoduo, Baidu, BYD, NIO, and Li Auto are in focus with key news on tap. U.S.-listed Chinese stocks bounced on Thursday, sometimes strongly, on a report that U.S.-China auditing deal was close. The preliminary accord, confirmed on Friday, substantially eases delisting fears. Pinduoduo and Baidu in particular showed bullish action, but had earnings on tap. Pinduoduo jumped early Monday on blowout results. Tesla EV rivals BYD, NIO, and Li need some work, but are worth watching. On the futures, Dow futures fell 0.8 versus fair value, the S&P lost 0.9, and the Nasdaq tumbled 1.1. They all suggest the indices may test their 50-day moving averages on Monday's open. The 10-year yield jumped 6 points to 3.1%, without GDP to back it up, again. The 2-year popped to 3.45%, the highest since November of 2007, with GDP nowhere near ready to back it up, just like in November of 2007. The odds of another 75-point hike have risen to 2/3 as of Monday morning. Crude oil futures rose slightly, while natural gas prices climbed more than 1%. Copper futures fell 3%. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see possibly coming in for today. That's what they predict. Let's grab one from Friday. And this one actually comes from the Hill. I don't usually use the Hill when we're talking about finance, but this is their explanation as to what it is that they think is going to happen. Reading from the Hill, Dow drops 1,000 points following Powell's speech at Jackson Hole. I still find it funny. And I know that it's an abbreviation of Jackson, but I still find it funny to think that the speech that Powell makes that gets everybody so up in arms and afraid is at a place called Jack Hole. Which is interesting because the more I read about Jerome Powell, the more I realize that he himself is actually a jackhole. Reading on, stocks closed sharply down on Friday following comments from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, as the Fed will press forward with raising interest rates amid lingering inflation. The Dow dropped more than 1,000 points, while the Nasdaq dropped almost 500. The S&P dumped more than 140 points. All three declines meant more than a 3% drop. All are still slightly above their levels from a month ago, but much of their gains at that time were erased on Friday. Powell gave a keynote address at the Fed's annual policy summit in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, saying that the central bank would be willing to take forceful and rapid steps to address inflation, even if it means potentially higher unemployment and a recession. And again, I remind you that it does appear off of this that the Fed's goal, the goal of the Federal Reserve, is to keep you out of the market. Meanwhile, money printer go burr whenever the Biden admin says, hey, that place that my son used to work, hey, they want money from us. Jerome. Man, I knew a guy named Jerome at the country club in Delaware. He was the help. Jerome, print more money. The Bureau of Economic Analysis was revealed on Friday that the inflation slowed to 6.3% in July, from exactly a year ago. This figure is down from the 6.8% annual inflation rate that was reported in June. But the Fed's goal is to get inflation down to 2%, and Powell said the drop from last month is far short of what the Fed needs to see before it can be confident that inflation is dropping. Dude, if that's the goal that you are trying to get to, and I have my doubts about that, you don't need to be dropping it down to 2%, 1%, etc. You need to get it negative at this point, because all this 6.8, 6.9, 8.5, 9.1, that's on top of high inflation from last year, 4.2, 5.8, 6.8, etc. We're compounding inflation at this point in a hurting fashion. The Fed has already raised the rates from a range of 0 to 0.25% in March to 2.25% to 2.5% in July. This includes 2 consecutive increases of 0.75, the largest monthly increases in almost 30 years. And I do think that with the extent of people trying to, first off, with the Fed coming in saying, yeah, no, we are going to definitely turn out and we're definitely going to make it hurt, because we need to go and make it hurt. We need to get inflation under control. Throwing these 3/4 basis points, while they turned out well for the last couple times, like, oh, the Fed is actually doing something to get inflation back in check. Even the investors are looking at this now saying, if we start to get unemployment like Jerome Powell is talking about, we're going to wind up in a situation whereby enough people are going to be unemployed or hurting enough that they're going to start selling off their 401ks. Which unfortunately is where a lot of these stocks are wrapped up into. Yes, the investor class and the hedge fund managers do have a bunch of their own money that they buy, sell, and use, because then they don't have an income, then they have capital gains, which are taxed at a much lower rate. But the vast majority of stocks in this country are held in people's retirements. Private retirements, not what's the word I'm looking for? Not Social Security pensions, but actual private retirement funds. Because there's more of us than there are of them. And pretty much I think everybody has at least a little bit in a 401k at this point. A good percentage of the working class does at this point. So once those start to get sold off, because we're at 10%, 15% unemployment, but don't worry, that inflation is down, that's when you start to see a little bit of problem coming out of the market. But that's what we see off Wall Street. Of course, we know what the big news of the day is going to be. Or maybe we don't, because you can't read the title because it is redacted. Much like the document we're about to talk about here. See the live chat up so I can see. By the way, if you guys do want to play with this and you're doing it on a PC, I don't know how you do it on your Android or Apple phones, and I know which one of you guys have Androids and which ones have Apple. But if you're on the computer and you want to chat, but you want it redacted, the block that I'm using in the title and the one that I used on the Twitter notification, it's Alt 219. If you guys want to play with that, have fun. From the Associated Press, FBI, Trump mixed top secret docs with magazines and other items. From Eric Tucker and Michael Balsamo. 14 of the 15 boxes recovered from former President Trump's Florida estate this year contained classified documents, many of them top secret, mixed in with miscellaneous newspapers, magazines, and personal correspondence, according to an FBI affidavit released on Friday. No space at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate was authorized for the storage of classified material, according to the court papers. Which we'll be talking about that once we get to the affidavit, because of course, it probably was authorized for that, except for the fact that somebody who claims that he has no knowledge of this and had no knowledge of this revoked a certain somebody's security clearance in an unprecedented move. Let's keep going. Which laid out the FBI's rationale for searching the property. No, that's not what happened. You can even see that through the redaction, that's not what happened last month, including probable cause to believe that evidence of obstruction will be found. The 32-page affidavit, heavily redacted to protect the safety of witnesses and law enforcement officials and the integrity of the ongoing investigation, offers the most detailed description to date. Are you serious? I've read the document, and I think you're lying. And I also think that the Associated Press believes that you won't read the 32 pages of document, which you can find in my Discord, by the way. I linked it there. Long after Trump left the White House, it reveals the gravity of the government's concerns that the documents were there illegally. The government is conducting a criminal investigation concerning the improper removal and storage of classified information in unauthorized spaces, as well as the unlawful concealment or removal of government records, an FBI agent wrote on the first page of the affidavit. Documents previously made public show the federal agents are investigating potential violations of multiple federal laws, including one that governs gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information under the Espionage Act. The other statutes address the concealment, mutilation, or removal of records and the destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations. Trump has long insisted, despite clear evidence to the contrary, that he fully cooperated with the government officials and has rallied Republicans behind him by painting... Oh my God. The editorializing. It's always the editorializing. And we always get it from the Associated Press, too, by the way. It's constant with them. It is absolutely constant with them. Evil Orange Man! He said that he was cooperating, but he clearly wasn't. By painting the search as a politically motivated witch hunt intended to damage his re-election prospects, he repeated that refrain on a social media site on Friday, saying that he and his representatives had a close working relationship with the FBI and gave them much. His attorneys, late Friday, repeated the request for the appointment of an independent special master to review the documents taken from the home, saying that the redacted affidavit doesn't give Trump sufficient information about why the search took place or what materials were removed. The affidavit does not provide new details about the 11 sets of classified records recovered during the August 8th search at Mar-a-Lago, but instead concerns a separate batch of 15 boxes the National Archives and Records admin retrieved from the home in January. And that's going to be important. We're going to talk about that in a moment. The Archives sent a matter to the Justice Department indicating in its referral that a review showed a lot of classified materials, the affidavit said. The affidavit made the case to a judge that a search of Mar-a-Lago was necessary due to the highly sensitive material found in those 15 boxes of 184 documents, with classification markings 25 were at the top secret level. The affidavit says some had special markings suggesting they included information from highly sensitive human sources or the collection of electronic signals authorized by Special Intelligence Court. And some of those classified records were mixed in with other documents, including newspapers, magazines, and miscellaneous printouts, the affidavit says, citing a letter from the archives. Doug London, a former senior CIA officer, author of The Recruiter, said this showed Trump's lack of respect for controls of the rules of classified. One of the rules of classified is you don't mix the classified and unclassified, so there's no mistake or accidents, he said. The affidavit shows the agents were authorized to search a large swath of Mar-a-Lago, including Trump's office, official post-presidential 45 office, storage rooms, and all other areas in which the boxes or documents could be stored. They did not propose searching areas of the property used or rented by Mar-a-Lago members, such as private guest suites. Yes, we talked about this. So, let's actually look at the document before we go into the editorializing of National Progressive Radio and Politico. Because I have it here, and I'm actually at the bottom. I read it Let's see. I read it once on Saturday, and then late last night again. And you're going to see, once we're scrolling up through the top, all the black marking here. But this is the affidavit, and I mean, it looks actually fairly normal, with the exception of a little bit of a blacked out box here, right in the beginning. Introduction, agent background. The government's conducting a criminal investigation concerning the improper removal, storage, and classified information in unauthorized spaces, as well as the unlawful concealment or removal of government records. The investigation began as a result of a referral the United States National Archives and Records admin sent to the U.S. Department of Justice on February 9th, 2022, hereinafter. NARA referral. So, we've got our definitions. 1100 South Ocean Boulevard, Palm Beach, Florida, is the premises. The former president of the United States, hereafter known as F. POTUS. Hereinafter, 15 boxes, the 15 boxes. So our terms are defined. Premises, 15 boxes, premises, blank. Further, there's probable cause that the additional documents contain classified NDI, or that are presidential records subject to retention requirements currently remain at the premises. There's also probable cause to believe the evidence of obstruction will be found at the premises. Blanked out name. I am a special agent with the FBI assigned to field office, blank. During this time, I've received training at the FBI Academy at Quantico, specifically to counterintelligence and espionage investigations. I'm familiar with efforts to unlawfully collect, retain, and disseminate sensitive government information. I make this affidavit in support of an application under Rule 41. We've got the codes, source of evidence. I believe. Statutory authorization and definitions, EOs and U.S. code for what's actually being broken here. And here are the laws, if you want those. And here's your probable cause. And this is the juicy part. On February 18th, the archivist, chief administrator for NARA, stated in a letter to Congress's Committee on Oversight and Reform, that's Maloney, by the way, who just lost her seat, NARA had an ongoing communication with representatives of former President Trump throughout 2021, which resulted in the transfer of 15 boxes to NARA in January 22. NARA identified items marked as classified national security information within the boxes. The letter also stated that because NARA identified classified information in the boxes, NARA staff had been in communication with the DOJ. The letter was made publicly available at the following uniform resource locator. On February 18th, the same day, the Save America Political Action Committee posted the following statement on behalf of the former president. The National Archives did not find anything. They were given upon request presidential records in an ordinary and routine process to ensure the preservation of my legacy in accordance with the Presidential Records Act. An image of the statement is below. And that's where we start to see the barcodes. 3 full pages out. According to a CBS Miami article titled "Moving Truck Spotted at Mar-a-Lago," published Monday, at least 2 moving trucks were observed at the premises on January 18th, 2021. 2 days before the former president was supposed to be moved out of the White House and into his home back in Mar-a-Lago. That January 18th, 2021. More blankety blank, 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 blank. On May 6, 2021, NARA made a request for the missing PRA records and continued to make requests until approximately December 2021, when NARA was informed 12 boxes were found and ready for retrieval. From May 16th to 18th, 2022, FBI agents conducted a preliminary review of the 15 boxes provided to NARA and identified documents with classification markings in 14 of the 15 boxes. A preliminary triage of the documents with classification markings revealed the following approximate numbers: 184 unique documents bearing classification markings, including 67 marked as confidential, 92 marked as secret, and 25 as top secret. Further, FBI agents observed markings reflecting the following compartments: dissemination controls, HCS, FISA, ORCON, NOFORN, and SI. Based on my training and experience, I know that documents classified at these levels typically contain NDI. So this, from here, this is not in this, but this is where we're supposed to be getting reasonable cause. According to this guy has no idea what's in the documents, what's in the ones that were recovered, and therefore, honestly, no basis where he can come back and make an observation of what might be in the ones that are yet to come out of the investigation. Several of the documents also contain what appeared to be handwritten notes. On the second such letter, which attached POTUS Counsel, I asked DOJ to consider a few principles, which include Counsel's claim that President has absolute authority to declassify documents. In this letter, Counsel, I requested other things, that DOJ provide this letter to any judicial officer who is asked to rule on the motion pertaining to this investigation or on any application made in connection with investigative request concerning this investigation. More blankety blank, more blankety blank. And this is where it gets interesting, because the National Archives, when it says that we're cooperating fully, said, okay, your premises is not authorized to keep these documents. But until we can come back and sort this out, put this lock on a door to make sure nobody can get in and out of there. And by the way, we are well over halfway through this, 22 out of 32, and then the last 6 pages are various documents pertaining to this. On June 8th, DOJ counsel sent former President Counsel a letter which reiterated the premises are not authorized to store classified information and requested the preservation of the storage room and boxes that had been moved from the White House to the premises. Specifically, the letter stated in relevant part, as I previously indicated to you, Mar-a-Lago does not include a secure location authorized for the storage of classified information. As such, it appears that since the time classified documents blank were removed from the secure facilities of the White House and moved to Mar-a-Lago on or around January 20th, 2021, they have not been handled in an appropriate manner or stored in an appropriate location. Accordingly, we ask that the room at Mar-a-Lago where the documents have been stored be secured, and that all of the boxes that were moved from the White House to Mar-a-Lago, along with other items in that room, be preserved in that room in their current condition until further notice. Now, the dates of this are important, because this is on June 8th. The raid took place on August 8th. On June 9th, Counsel sent an email to DOJ Counsel saying, I write to acknowledge the receipt of this letter. And then blank, 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 blank. Based on the investigation, I believe that the storage room, former President's residential suite, Pine Hall, the 45 office, and other spaces on the premises are not currently authorized locations for the storage of classified information, or NDI. Similarly, based upon this investigation, I do not believe that any spaces within the premises have been authorized for the storage of classified information, at least since the end of the former President's presidential admin, January 20th, 2021. As described above, evidence of subject offenses has been stored in multiple locations on the premises. Blankety blank. According to the affidavit, seeks authorization to search 45 office and all storage rooms and other rooms. And then a request for sealing. Search procedures. So there are a couple things out of here, and there are a couple things that I glossed over as well. First off, in the affidavit. And I'd love to see at least 50% of what's behind the blanking from this. That they're doing this, and they're doing this in a, middle of the day, but a raid when there was going to be minimal Secret Service protection, and the president himself is not going to be there because we expect to be faced with reasonable resistance from going and seeing this. And I'd like to know on what basis you believe that that's going to be the case, but of course, there's so much hidden behind this, and we knew this was going to happen. We knew full well this was going to happen. We knew right from the beginning that no matter what, they were going to come back out of this, and they were going to make this as damning to the former president as possible. Now, honestly, I think they failed in this, because they did have to come back out and admit in the places that we can see that yes, the Trump organization was cooperating. But they can take that black marker and blast out any little thing they want to cut and copy and make this look however they want it to look. I mean, hell, we see it with the January 6th circus. The committee that they have going off of there. What they're doing with the jump cuts and everything else in the video is pretty much the same thing they're doing with this. Leaving out the part that makes them look like this is just a witch hunt. And leaving out in the part of, oh, there were classified documents, so we had to go back and make sure there weren't more. But that's what we see for that. Let's grab one from our friends over at NPR. Over 180 classified documents removed by National Archives from Mar-a-Lago, affidavit says. This is from the Washington desk, and remember, NPR needs our money, comrade, to make sure they can continue to tell you what it is you're supposed to believe about the evil orange man and all the documents that he had, rather than what's actually there and what's actually behind the black marker. So hit that donate button, because they are never printing reality. National Progressive Radio, let's see what they have to say. The affidavit FBI used to get a warrant for searching former President Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago is now public. Do you call this public? This right here, is that public? Is this public? I wouldn't say that's public. Is this public to you? A redacted version of the document was released by the federal court this afternoon. Of the 32 pages in the affidavit from an FBI special agent with expertise in counterintelligence and espionage, nearly half were covered in the thick black line, masking there's more than that. Just on a cursory look over there, I would say 60 to 70%. Masking information that it had demonstrated to a federal judge the need to search Trump's Florida property. 8 pages of exhibits and supplementary information were also released, which were not redacted. Probable cause exists to believe that evidence, contraband, fruits of crime, or other forms of illegally possessed was being improperly stored at various places at Mar-a-Lago, the affidavit says. According to the affidavit, 184 classified documents, including 25 marked top secret, were found among the 15 boxes the National Archives have obtained. So, this is what makes this maddening to me. Now, first off, we saw from the search warrant and the bill of goods that the search warrant took out of there, that the search warrant extended to anything and everything pertaining to the 45th President of the United States' time in office. Anything remotely from January 21st, 2020 or 2017 to January 20th, 2021. Anything in that span at all, anywhere, was fair game for what it is that we saw. But their basis for going in and nabbing and grabbing more of that, according to what's unredacted, of course. Now, there may be something behind the thick black marker that we can't see that absolutely shatters this entire thing and says, he did it! Hang him! He was selling secrets, and we know that he was selling secrets. There may be something like that. I highly doubt that there's going to be something like that. But something like that may exist. But their entire premise for going in and searching is the fact that there were classified documents in the boxes that were requested that were already turned over. That there was stuff in there that the National Archives specifically said, okay, we want this back, and this back, and this back. And because it was there might be other documents in other places. Yeah, I don't buy it. I think it's crap. Shortly after the affidavit was released on Friday, Trump made an emotional statement on his Truth social media account referring to the search as the break-in of my home, which it kind of was. He also said federal law enforcement was carrying out a total public relations subterfuge without providing explanation and declared, "We gave them much," when he described his voluntary turning over of some of the material improperly kept at Mar-a-Lago. Since the search was executed on August 8th, threats of violence toward the FBI have increased, anticipating the potential for violence from Trump support. Oh my God. The potential for violence! Give me a break. That is, and these people who talk softly into the microphone like this, they could only dream of violence from Trump supporters. And as mentioned, when it came down to and that Ohio one really dropped out of the news in a hurry, didn't it? They didn't want people talking about that except for to get it out on the news and have people actually saying, "Oh, well, a guy went out and he shot the FBI." Okay, well, let's get his name. Let's go look through his history. Let's figure out what's going on with that. Oh, he just happened to have been at January 6th as well? That's interesting. Man, these sweater wearers over at NPR, they would give anything to have violence come in from a Trump supporter over this. Like, come on, do a civil war, do a civil war. Oh my God, do it, come on, oh, start an insurrection. Yeah, they would give anything for that. Side story on this. So, I try to stay off of Twitter on Sunday, but I saw something so stupid yesterday. I had to go back in and comment on it. And it's just this guy who's coming in, and his entire shtick is January 6th. And everybody who disagrees with him is a fascist. So, I mean, he's a standard liberal in that aspect, but because people are saying that January 6th wasn't a huge deal that almost ended democracy, that these people are fascists because they're trying to go and downplay this. And we just keep going over and over again with this idiot. But he's another one where they need to have the violence in order to justify their worldview. Anticipating the potential for violence from Trump supporters, the agent in the affidavit asked for it to be sealed. The agent also said publicly releasing it could lead to criminal activity. I believe that sealing the document is necessary because items and information to be seized are relevant to an ongoing investigation. The FBI has not yet identified all the potential criminal confederates, nor located all the evidence related to its investigation, the unidentified agent wrote in the affidavit. Premature disclosure of the contents of this affidavit and related documents may have a significant and negative impact on the continuing investigation and may severely jeopardize its effectiveness by allowing criminal parties an opportunity to flee, destroy the evidence stored electronically and otherwise, change patterns of behavior, and notify criminal confederates. A previous version of the story said that Pacer, the country's main court filing system, was unable to handle the downloading demand for the document, which meant the scores of people and media outlets could not read it until well after the court-mandated deadline of noon. Well, again, I remind you that people can't read it anyway. It has nothing to do with the download. People can't read this anyway because you've hidden almost the entire document behind black marker. The affidavit also explains the work of a privilege review team to identify and segregate documents that may be shielded by attorney-client privilege. Still, they're shielded from attorney-client privilege, and yet an agent of the state has to go back and read them, thus violating the attorney-client privilege. What do you want to bet that one of those things leaks before midterms? But the headline is misleading. Over 180 classified documents removed by National Archives from Mar-a-Lago, affidavit says. Now, especially if you had TDS, if you read a headline like that, what would you think? Oh, well, they had 180 classified documents in the raid. But even a little bit of a scratch on the surface there reveals that no, this is what they're talking about from May when the boxes got turned back over. Willingly. Alright, let's grab one from Politico. Actually, I might gloss over this one just because we've seen a lot of this here. Trump Mar-a-Lago affidavit reveals handwritten notes, highly classified material, led to warrant request. From Josh Gerstein and Kyle Cheney. Handwritten notes. Human source intelligence intercepts under Foreign Surveillance Act. Records from the FBI obtained from Trump's Florida home in advance of the August search bore indications that they contain human. And this, again, all that they really talk about is what they retrieved before. But it's framed in a way that, oh, this was what they got this time through. This is what the FBI went and got. Prosecutors also added in another court filing unsealed Friday that the ongoing criminal probe into the government records stashed at Trump's Florida home has involved a significant number of civilian witnesses whose safety could be jeopardized if their identities were revealed. So that's the reason for why we redacted it so far. Let's grab one from Newsweek. Russia absolutely tried to infiltrate Mar-a-Lago, former FBI official says, from Xander Landon. And who is the one in question? Why? It's none other than... Oh shit, I don't have a cell phone out here. I can't do my normal text message or pantomime off of that. It's none other than... Don't worry, Lisa Page. We have a plan. We'll never let this guy get into the White House. Mr. Peter Strzok himself. Former FBI official Peter Strzok said in an interview Sunday that foreign intelligence services in the country, including Russia, have been absolutely interested in gaining access to former President Trump's Florida property at Mar-a-Lago. Strzok's comments came after FBI raided the property earlier this month as part of an investigation into whether Trump potentially mishandled classified information that he took with him after he left the White House last year. A search warrant revealed that agents seized the items, including top-secret documents from the property, on August 8th. During his interview on MSDNC, Katie Fang asked Strzok if he believes it's a possibility the Russians would have been interested and possibly tried to infiltrate Mar-a-Lago to get classified information. Well, Katie, it's absolutely the Russians, but not just the Russians. Any competent foreign intelligence service, whether that's those belonging to China, those belonging to Iran, or to Cuba, certainly including Russia, are all interested in gaining access to Mar-a-Lago, Strzok responded. So, Iranians and Chinese and Russian are going to walk in to a private gated club and go past the restricted area, past 1,000 Secret Service agents, to go get documents that they don't even know are there. Really, Peter Strzok? Strzok added, what's especially concerning right now is that some of the information that's coming out about the absolute lack of any sort of control or memorialization of who had access to Mar-a-Lago at any given time, particularly in the context of the fact that it appears that classified documents were strewn all over the facility. Strzok was fired from the FBI after text messages from 2016 were released revealing anti-Trump remarks between himself and Lisa Page. He has remained a critic of the former president and published a book in 2020 titled Compromised: Counterintelligence and the Threat of Donald J. Trump. Oh, so you're going on MSNBC right now because you wrote a book about counterintelligence and secret documents that Trump has access to, and now you think you have a way to go back and sell a book. Is that what this is, Peter Strzok? All right. Here's the $1 million one that everybody's freaking the hell out about. Wow, what's going on in my mentions today? Is this idiot still getting dragged from yesterday? Asen tweets out, Graham says there will be riots in the street if Trump is prosecuted. Let's listen. Now, I have not listened to this yet. But my preliminary indication of this is that Lindsey Graham is an idiot.
Say this. If there's a prosecution of Donald Trump for mishandling classified information after the Clinton debacle, which you presided over and did a hell of a good job, there'll be riots in the streets. Say this. If there's a prosecution of Donald Trump.
Now, of course, there are numerous people out here who are looking at this, listening to this, and saying, oh, well, this is Lindsey Graham. He's encouraging riots in the street. That's not what he said. Now, I will put that with a caveat and say that he shouldn't have said this either. He should have kept his damn mouth shut instead of coming out and saying, oh, sugar, you better not go back out there and indict him because otherwise there's going to be riot in the streets. Dude, people like the leftoids and, Lindsey Graham, who blows with the wind anyway, prancing around like a little fairy that he is, blowing with the wind. Well, not quite that kind of blowing with the wind, but he still blows with the wind. And he probably does that kind of blowing with the wind, too. But that's just going to encourage them to go out and indict harder. Because they want that violence in the street. They want to come in and say, unhinged! Trump supporters! Just put them all in the camps! They can't be trusted! Are you stupid, Lindsey Graham? Are you dumb? Or do you stand to benefit from the neoconservative, war pig, McCainite, Bushite, Romneyite, Cheneyite Republican Party coming back into power? Because I actually do think it's the latter, not the former. But given the fact that you get up on Fox and you say something stupid like that, leads me to believe that there's also a possibility of the former and that you really are that damn stupid. Let's talk about the aftermath of this. From CNN, judge says she has preliminary intent to appoint special master to oversee Mar-a-Lago search review, which is going to be a heavily partisan. See what stood out to a CNN reporter about the redacted affidavit. I'm kind of curious about that. But the judge, who is in the middle of this case, and Reinhardt himself are going to work together to make sure that, yes, there is going to be a conversation about what's in the document. It's going to be a heavily partisan master who's going to look at this and say, okay, what can we have and what can we keep? But it also will keep state law enforcement agents from going through this. I'm not sure a judicial agent is going to be any better in this situation. Hey, maybe they'll get that judge from the Alex Jones case. I bet you that woman could be completely impartial. Let's read. And then I do actually want to have a quick listen to what the info babe over at CNN has to say. A federal judge scheduled a hearing Thursday to consider former President Trump's request for a special master to oversee the FBI's review of evidence seized at Mar-a-Lago. In doing so, the court put the parties on notice that she had a preliminary intent to appoint the special master, a third-party attorney who would filter out privileged material seized in the search. Ahead of the hearing, the government faces a Tuesday deadline to respond to Trump's request in writing, according to the scheduling order from the court. District Judge Eileen Cannon, who was nominated to the bench by Trump in 2020, is asking the Department of Justice to file a public response and additionally file under seal records, going into greater detail about what was seized from the search, as well as a notice laying out the status of the review of the seized materials, including the process of filtering out privileged information. Trump's reply to DOJ's response is due on Wednesday. The hearings will be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time Thursday at the courthouse in West Palm Beach. Cannon said at the end of the order that it should not be construed as her final decision on the matter. On Friday, Trump responded to Cannon's request that he elaborate on his request for the special master by appointing some additional legal discussion of case law that he said supported his request. Cannon had identified several shortcomings in his Monday filing request. More oversight. Trump's Friday submission came hours after the Justice Department unsealed a redacted version of the affidavit it used to obtain the warrant, which laid out new details about the FBI's investigation and the highly sensitive nature of classified material that had been previously retrieved from the Palm Beach, Florida resort. So, we're going to have somebody coming in and going over the documents. I'm not sure how effective that's going to be or anything else like that, but we're going to have somebody going over there and checking all that out. Let's skip over that one. Let's grab another one from our friends over at NPR. After Mar-a-Lago, officials are analyzing the potential damage to national security because the orange man is evil. And he is evil because he is orange. So make sure that you hit that donate button so we can only put progressives and socialists back into the offices where they belong ever again. NPR, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what Ryan Lucas has to say. Not much, by the way. The intelligence community is counting the cost of what might have been compromised as they review the classified material of former President Trump had at his Florida property. That's it. That's the tweet. From the Blaze. This one's interesting, and I've got the video clip to come with this, although I'm sure Blaze has it up here too, because they're actually fairly good at this. But I've got a little bit of an extended clip off of this. Bill Maher leaves Rob Meathead Reiner dumbfounded with one question about the media suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. From Paul Saka. Yeah, Bill Maher, I would say suffers from broken clock syndrome, but he's actually been on the ball lately. I don't know what happened to Bill Maher, but he's become less Democratic partisan and more objective. He's still a Democrat partisan, but he's shifted. You know, let's go left to right here, and this is my left to right. So, down here at the tip of my fingers is where Bill Maher used to be. This is actual objective center. So, during the Trump administration and before, Bill Maher was here, and now he's maybe kind of here. You know, here to here. Here is actually objective. So he's come to this point a little bit. Bill Maher exposed the political blind spot of Meathead by stumping the actor with a question regarding suppression of the Hunter laptop, story by Legacy Media. During the latest episode of Real Time, the Liberal host discussed whether it was merited for the mainstream media outlets and social media platforms to suppress and censor the Hunter laptop. The topic was in response to Sam Harris saying the cover-up of Hunter Biden's shady business dealings overseas was warranted because of former President Trump was an existential threat to our democracy. Let's actually listen to the clip and then we'll comment on it. Do note this is HBO, so there may be some language, and I think there is a little bit of bad language in this one here, so if you got the kids next to you, earmuffs.
Anything is justified in preventing them from taking office, is it?
No. You know what's not justified? Using armed violence to try to kill people in the Capitol. That's not justified.
Answer this question. Huh? Answer this question.
What is
was
the
it
question?
appropriate? The question is,
Was
it
the press-
appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden?
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course. You don't
but
follow
I'm
this.
saying you know for a fact that that's what they did. I don't know what they did.
I know, because you only watch MSNBC.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Well, then you would know about this.
I do know about that.
Well, you're acting like you know.
I do know about that, and I do watch Fox. But the point is, we're going to prove now that the press tried to.
They're admitting it.
The press is admitting it.
Yes, that's not even an issue anymore. They're saying, yes, we basically did this because we didn't want this to throw the election. Yes?
I don't know that they've all said this, and I believe strongly
well, the New York
in the
Times
First
definitely
Amendment.
did.
My dad was a reporter. I believe in it. And I think you have to make sure that you're treating people fairly. But I think Rob's point here is that we are dealing with a man who used to be the president right now, who literally tried to lead an armed insurrection. And that's why we're so focused on this right now. And I have not been, as you've noticed, as bombastic as my friend here about what's going to happen. About what's going to happen coming out of what we just got out of what they just got out of Mar-a-Lago. I don't know. And just as I don't know what's going to happen in these cases, I believe you got to let the Justice Department do their jobs. And that is why.
I love Klobuchar at the end of, oh, well, my daddy was a reporter, so we need to come back out and just trust what the reporters have to do. And I mean, if we go back and look into it, Reiner has no idea what to do.
Is it appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden?
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course. You don't
but
follow
I mean,
this.
saying you know for a fact that that's what they did? I don't know what they did.
I know, because you only watch MSNBC.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Well, then you would know about this.
I do know about that.
Well, you're acting like you don't.
I do know about that, and I do watch Fox. But the point is, we're going to prove now that the press tried to.
They're admitting it.
The press is admitting it.
Yes, that's not even
they did
anymore. They're saying, yes, we basically did this because we didn't want this to throw the election. Yes?
I don't know that they've all said.
Look at him. Like, what? And I'm going to be I'm going to give Rob Reiner the benefit of the doubt. I don't believe for a second that he didn't know that. I think he knew that, but it sounds to be more like he wanted to come back and play dumb and like, oh, they didn't do that? What? No, they're completely objective. And then Klobuchar comes in. Well, my daddy was a reporter. So, yeah. All right, let's keep going. Some more stuff coming out of our news outlets. Benny Johnson, Biden press secretary, breaks on live TV, snaps in a bumbling tirade against MAGA Republicans. Also haven't pre-watched this one. But some people in my Discord did watch that, and they had some commentary for it.
So yes, absolutely. Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with what the president said at a fundraiser tonight, just before his rally. The president likened what he called extreme MAGA philosophy to semi-fascism. What exactly is semi-fascism, Karine?
So let me just first say this tonight, what you heard from this president, Don. And again, thank you for having me, because this is really important. The American people have a choice in front of them. And the president laid that out very clearly, very powerfully tonight. When you look at what Democrats are doing and what they are delivering and what they have done, Don, in less than 2 years, which is lowering costs on prescription drugs, lowering the energy costs, making sure that we have this historic legislation to really deal with climate crisis. All of these things are important. Standing up for women.
And they are, Karine. I want to get to all those things. With all due respect, but we have a short time. I'm going to get to all those things, but if you'll answer my question, we can get to those things. What exactly is semi-fascism?
Don, I was just about to get to your question.
Okay.
I really was. But
right.
I want to, you brought me on the show for a reason, and I have to talk about
I understand that. I just have limited time with you. I just want to make sure we get all the answers. By
having this back and forth, we're actually taking away from the time. So here we go. So what we are seeing from Republicans and what we have seen from Republicans these past several years is that they are attacking our democracy. They are taking away our freedom. And they are trying to put on the chopping blocks Medicare and Social Security. That's what we are seeing. And it's being done. If you look at the Republican Party, it's being done by this element, this MAGA element of the Republican Party. And that's what we are trying to prevent. That's what you heard from the president today, that choice, what we're doing for Democrats, because that's why I said that to you. I started off because I wanted to show what we're doing and what we have done, and also make that contrast, because that's what we're seeing from Republicans, this MAGA element.
Yes, the MAGA element that actually wants to get their agenda finished at some point here. And these people, what they don't understand, first off, is we know from personal experience that they could have the entirety of their agenda done. They can have all of the people that they want to have in that office, into that office. The Cheneys, the Romneys, the Bushes, the McCains. God, I just had a chill run up my spine. They can have all these people in the office. Man, I just had another chill run up my spine. What's going on here? Regardless, they can put all those people into office. And as soon as all the MAGA people are purged out there, the same thing is going to be happening. Oh, the Bushes, they're fascist. They're Nazis. They're just like Trump. Evil. Except when the Cheneys and the Romneys and the Bushes get called racist and evil, they'll back down in the corner and say, no, don't call us a racist. We'll do whatever you want. We'll roll over for you. We'll do whatever you want. And that's a part of the problem that people like Karine Jean-Pierre have with this, is the fact that the MAGA element actually doesn't roll over for this. They get called a racist and they look back and they say, screw you. I still want to get my agenda finished. From the Blaze. More Token Diversity Hire news. White House doubles down on Biden's semi-fascism attack on GOP. That is what that is. From Chris Pandolfo. The White House on Friday doubled down on President Biden's use of the word fascism to describe his Republican opponents. Press Secretary Token Diversity Hire told reporters at a briefing that the GOP record and agenda is the very definition of fascism, defending the president's remarks, which Republicans had called despicable. I was very clear when laying out and defining... Wait, this is Token Diversity Hire. I was very clear when laying out and defining what MAGA Republicans have done, and you look at the definition of fascism, and you think about what they're doing in attacking our democracy. That's what they're doing in taking away our freedoms and wanting to take away our rights and our voting rights. I mean, and that's what it is. Diversity Hire said on Friday. Let's listen.
I got it. I'm in there now. So two questions.
Sure.
On the semi-fascism comment.
Yeah.
Is this something we're going to hear more of, that phrase? Is it something the president's going to kind of embrace? Or is there any sense that it was, a little impromptu and it's going to turn into a kind of basket of deplorables thing that he regrets and tries to be quiet about?
Look, I was very clear when laying out and defining what MAGA Republicans have done, and you look at the definition of fascism and you think about what they're doing in attacking our democracy, what they're doing in taking away our freedoms, wanting to take away our rights, our voting rights. I mean, that is what that is. It is very clear, and that's why he made that powerful speech that you heard from him last night. And he has not shied away from saying that. You have heard him maybe not use that specific word, but you have heard him certainly use that definition. And look, what we are putting before the American people is a choice, right? and it is clear, there's a clear contrast as what is happening on that side of the aisle and what's happening on our side with congressional Democrats and what we have been delivering for the American people. And we're going to continue to fight for freedom. We're going to continue to fight for people's rights, and that is not that is something that he takes very seriously, and that's what you heard from him last night.
All right, so that's what we have for that. Let's see. The president also said he doesn't respect the MAGA Republicans. No, you're kidding. Washington Free Beacon reporter: 70 million Americans voted for Trump in 2020. Does Biden not respect those voters? Let's listen.
And secondly, the president also said he respects conservative Republicans, but he does not respect MAGA Republicans. More than 70 million Americans voted for Trump in 2020. Does he not respect those voters?
No, I mean, that's not what he said. I think he was pretty clear, and he was very powerful last night. Look, what the president said last night was that when it comes to MAGA Republicans, when it comes to the extreme, ultra wing of Republicans, they are attacking democracy, right? They are taking away.
Her eyes flutter when she lies, by the way. I noticed that, not necessarily with any of the speeches I've seen from the pulpit, except now I'm looking for it, but with the MSNBC clip that we looked at just a minute ago, her eyes flutter when she lies.
Rights and freedoms. They are using threats of violence. They are taking away voting rights, and he called it what it is. That's what he did. He called it what it is, and what many, we would argue, historians would agree with us on. And so, what Joe Biden believes is, as president, he should, and president should, be the strongest voice for democracy. And so he was making that very clear. He was making that contrast to what congressional Democrats have been doing, which is fighting for our rights, fighting for freedom, delivering on an economy that is historic, 10 million jobs that have been created, lowering health care, lowering prescription drugs, and making sure that we take on those special interest groups. And we saw just a couple weeks ago that we won. So he's making that contrast, trying to make that very clear of what we are seeing today. And so he was passionate about this, he was eloquent about this, and he also, when it comes to what you're asking me about Republicans who are conservative, clearly he said that he believed there are traditional conservative Republicans. He was very clear on that. He specifically called out and mentioned Maryland Governor Larry Hogan as one of them. So, but we have to really, make sure that we make it clear that there's a choice in front of the American people, right? And we have to make sure that we make it loud and clear that when it comes to MAGA Republicans, we call that out, and that's what he did, and what they're doing, right? What they're doing in attacking our democracy. And so he wanted to be clear on that, and he made that contrast, and that's what you heard from the president.
So there you go. If you don't agree with Joe Biden, you are fascist. Fascism is wow. Boy, I can talk this morning. Fascism is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary as a political philosophy, movement, or regime such as the fascisti that exalts nation and often race above the individual and stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. So, the people who are saying all white straight men are evil and that we should have all of our power central, all cops are bastards unless they're federal police, are saying that the people who say, let's have some smaller government, more local, and let's take some of the power out of D.C., especially away from the Supreme Court, yet those people are fascist. Sounds good to me. Hey, a little bit of a Cope post here for you. This is an op-ed from The Hill. So, opinion from The Hill. Why 2024 might be Joe Biden's time again. The opinions in here are from Peter Fenn, op-ed contributor. The views expressed by the contributors are their own and not the view of The Hill. In addition, the views expressed here are the views of the author, not necessarily contemporary, Turns of Pages Productions, or the host here. Let's read. In March of 2019, I wrote a piece for The Hill on why 2020 just might be Joe Biden's time. Well, considering that we just had impeachment 1.0, and his son was implicated in the Burisma thing, and he needed to have executive privilege as fast as he could, yeah, I could see why that would be his time. Note, by the way, that in March of 29, he had not announced that he was running yet. At that point, early in the primary season, many had written him off. Now, as we approach the 2022 elections and polls and pundits are once again writing off Joe Biden, my advice is be careful. Be very careful. Here are 10 reasons why, once again, I urge the chattering class not to count Biden out should he decide to run. Reason 1, low presidential poll numbers are in the off-year notoriously unreliable predictors. Just look at 82, 94, 2010. Here's the headline from the New York Times on August 19, 1982. Approval rating for Reagan is lowest ever in Gallup poll. That is, the moron that's writing this is actually, he's got a point with this one, is that, yes, there was a 41 approval rating for Reagan. But it's, in modern polling, it's kind of interesting the way that things go with how they report approval ratings. Now, Mr. Trump did not ever receive a approval rating as low on the aggregate as Biden had, and Mr. Trump had a wall of mainstream legacy propaganda running against him constantly. Constantly. And he could not get down to the point that Mr. Biden is. 2024 is actually a long way away as well. And do keep in mind that, I mean, the House is a foregone conclusion at this point. The Senate's still 50-50. That could go either way at this point, but the House is a foregone conclusion. It's statistically impossible for Democrats to keep the House in its current form. But the legacy media also has a brand new punching bag. A new punching bag where they can come out and say, ex-Speaker of the House is the evil person. He's shutting down the government. It's his fault that we have inflation and high gas prices right now. It's the same thing with Bill, desperate shape in August of 1994. Now, he came back and defeated Bob Dole, who was a historically weak candidate, and I don't know how he ever made it up to the top, but that was at a time when the Bushite, neoconservative, idiot Republicans were still the face of the Republican Party. Reason 2, the likely nominee is Donald Trump. Oh, they would love for that. They would love for that. Reason 3, critically important, the economy is improving. They say, while we're in the midst of the Fed about to put us up into a recession. But again, the new inflation numbers and the recessionary numbers, well, we're already in a recession, but the new economic drop numbers and the unemployment numbers aren't going to come until there's a brand new big punching bag in the name of a Republican Speaker of the House. Number 4, social issues begin to work for Democrats and Biden. See, I don't know about that. Now, one of the things to look at when we talk about where the social issues begin is the demographics question. Excuse me. When we look into things such as the LGBTQIARIMIGIXTPA pedophile agenda that we have going off with this, that doesn't play well in Catholic Hispanic voting groups. It doesn't necessarily play well in black demographics either. Now, they can come back out and run out and say, interracial marriage is going to be outlawed, where that's not even on a ballot anywhere. That was a moron Supreme Court justice spouting off of something that is not going to be supported. Like, they can kick that back to the states, and there are the vast majority of states that are going to look at that and say, we ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole. We have way too many people filing jointly into that demographic that are going to lose their ability to file jointly, and we will be broke completely if we do that. But they can continue to run back out and scream panic porn onto that. This is funny. Biden's advantage, debates. Although it's possible there will not be presidential debates, they do almost always happen. Trump is huffing and puffing, but it's hard to imagine that there will be an empty stage. First, Trump's ego won't allow it. He's on it on that one. And second, his advisors will convince him to agree. Biden will be increasingly competent and in control. Trump will be lucky to have read the morning papers. I would love to see another debate. Now, early stage dementia patient, Alzheimer's patient Biden was funny to watch, especially after Kamala Harris went back and sharpened her claws into him and then is now pretending that she didn't actually do that. When he just stood there and blinked and didn't know what was going on as she sat down and ripped him to shreds over, I was that student that was out being bussed. Watching Fox News won't cut it. I love to see I would live stream these debates if we had another Trump versus Biden debate. Then they're coming back in the legal troubles, which I don't see any basis as to why he won't be exonerated for this. The January 6th investigation is a serious problem. Notably, it's such a serious problem that right before the Mar-a-Lago raid, it was revealed that there was no intention to press any charges from the January 6th investigation because they couldn't come back with any charges. And then, of course, the spoiled child syndrome. Throwing his lunch and ketchup against the wall. Is there actually any evidence? Is there video of the throwing the ketchup? I want to see that. Reveal to me a video that he actually threw ketchup against the wall. It's the thing that the people who simp and kneel down for Joe Biden bring up all the time, so there's got to be a video of it, right? Anywhere? Somewhere? Somewhere? Anywhere? Well, that's what they have for that. And of course, the real big evidence that, yeah, this guy can totally get up on a debate stage. Shannon Ford. This has got to be a first in history. A first lady physically moving the president backwards while he's speaking to the press. Apparently there is no audio that goes with this one. Come on, Grandpa. It's time for bed. All right. D. Snyder. Attention, QAnon, maggot fascists. Every time you sing, we're not going to take it. Which I don't know that any of them have ever actually sang. Remember, it was written by a cross-dressing, libtard, tree-hugging half-Jew who hates everything you stand for. It was you and people like you that inspired every angry word of that song. So F off! Well, I am not Q. I'm not even a MAGA person. But as I sit and listen to Rage Against the Machine start to rage in favor of the machine over and over again, as I sit back and I hear more and more of this, I remember that I still scream out, "Screw you, I won't do what you tell me." And the sentiment of, no, I don't want to have any government, Democrat, Republican, or other, holding over me, is there. Even if Rage Against the Machine has brought themselves to the point where they will just do whatever the government tells them to and tell you to do whatever the government tells you to do. There was a dude, when I moved into college, there was a guy who was moving his kid into the next building over. And dude looked just like Dee Snider. I don't think it was, because Dee Snider at the time, even back in 2002, probably would have much more security detail around him, but dude looked just like him. Same haircut, same beard. A lot of the same piercings. All right, what else do we have? Moving on. CBO. IRS will increase audits on middle class, but only a small fraction of new tax revenues. From John Rigolizzo. The CBO admitted the IRS will increase audits on middle-class Americans after it received a funding boost from the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. In a letter to Republican House Ways and Means Committee ranking member Kevin Brady and a Budget Committee ranking member Jason Smith on Thursday, the CBO said at least some of the new tax revenues the IRS expects to collect over the next few years will come from families that earn less than $400,000 a year. However, the CBO expects the IRS to follow the directive set by the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, and audits against the middle class will only account for a small fraction of new tax revenues. Well, I mean, we all knew our taxes were going up. There's been a gigantic spending spree this year, and that they keep telling us that in spite of every $1 trillion that they spend out of the government and everything that's sent over to Ukraine, the deficit has fallen, which means they have a plan to build more taxes out of your pocket. As a result of increases in outlays for the IRS stemming from the act, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that revenues will increase by $180.4 billion over the 2022 to 2031 period. CBO wrote in its letter, CBO projects that some of the increased revenues will be collected from taxpayers with income less than $400,000. The amount will be a small fraction of the total increase because, well, the people who make more than $400,000 have more of the money to be able to tax. The amount of income, I should say, not money, but the amount of income that is made by people who make less than $500,000 is infantile. It is tiny compared to the amount of money and income and capital gains of the people who are in the upper class, the donor class. The CBO made reference to a directive issued by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen earlier this month. In a letter to IRS Commissioner Charles Redding on August 10th, Yellen directed the IRS to use the nearly $80 billion in new IRS funding provided by the Inflation Reduction Act to improve taxpayer service and increase equity in the tax system rather than increase enforcement on middle-class families. I direct that any additional resources, including any new personnel or auditors that are hired, shall not be used to increase the share of small business or households below the $400,000 threshold that are audited relative to historical levels, Yellen wrote. Which, again, a broken clock. If that's what Yellen said, then good on her. But see, Congress specifically bypassed a provision that would make that law. That can be changed on a whim by a new Treasury Secretary as soon as a new Treasury Secretary is in and realizes, hey, we need to go get more money. If that had been codified into law, well, it could still be changed as soon as they find out that they need money. But in doing so, it would take a legislative process, and they'd have to get all the representatives on board and get 60 votes to get it past the Senate. Now it can just be on a whim of a Treasury Secretary whenever they look at the balance sheet and say, crap, we need money. In creating its projections, CBO assumed that the IRS would comply with Yellen's directive and allocate enforcement resources to focus on what Yellen called high-end non-compliance. Therefore, it's projected that an increase in revenues collected from taxpayers with income less than $400,000 will constitute a small fraction of the total increases collected from all taxpayers, resulting from an increased funding for the IRS. No way. If you raise taxes, then the class of people who pays 92% of the taxes will get 92% of the increase? I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I'm not that shocked. From Fox. I think we might go over this one. We might pass over this one because this appears to be all the same information that was in the article before it. Let's grab another one from the Daily Wire then. Bernie Sanders. Bernie defends Biden's student loan debt cancellation, wants public colleges tuition free. Well, unfortunately, they're getting that direction. Which means they can go back and increase their prices and the government's going to keep paying. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders defended the Biden administration's decision to cancel thousands of dollars in federal student loan debt. Appearing on ABC's This Week with George Snuffleupagus. On Sunday, Sanders rebuked Republicans and vulnerable Democrats who criticized Biden's decision to unilaterally forgive up to $10,000 for most borrowers. Sanders said Biden did the right thing and pushed for the even more radical policy of making public colleges tuition free. I know, it is shocking that some Republicans, that the government on occasion does something to benefit working families and low-income people, Sanders said. I don't hear any of these Republicans squawking when we give massive tax breaks to billionaires, the millionaires and the billionaires, but I cannot say millionaires anymore because I am one of them. I will sell another book and buy a fourth house worth $1 million. And then we have an effective tax rate today, such that the 1% having a lower effective tax rate than the working people. I've said this on Twitter before, and I'll say this again. For Bernie, for the Blue Anon people, for our sky rampant friend who is probably waiting for me to say something that is bannable, or trying to trap me into the MAGA argument because I'm not paying attention on Twitter anymore. For that person, I will say this. Allowing a productive member of society to keep more of the money that is his own is not the same as playing Robin Hood with the middle class and taking from the poor and giving to the poorer. Those two things are not the same. Now, if we were taking from the poor and giving to the donor class, to the billionaires, which we are, unfortunately, that would be the same as student loan forgiveness. But that's not what tax breaks are. Nor is it the same as the PPP loan, which I also stood against. We have major corporations in a given year that don't pay a nickel in federal taxes. Lie, he continued. That's okay, but suddenly when we do something for working people, it's a terrible idea. I was in Boston last week. I was talking to nurses, and these nurses were telling me that they're working on, in some cases, 2 jobs. The outrageous hours partly in order to pay for student debts that they have accumulated. So in my view, the president did the right thing. And we have got to be really thinking about higher education in general. And in my view, at a time when hundreds of thousands of bright young people can't even afford to go to college, if we're going to be competitive in a global economy, we need to make public colleges and universities tuition free. The problem with that, of course, is if there's no risk or incentive to go to college, then people aren't going to go into a nursing field, a STEM field, a computer programming field, or things like that. They're going to go get racial and gender studies degrees because those are easy. They go read a few politically charged books that our college professor told us meant that we are true Democrats. Instead of, math and the science behind it and learning all the organs. And I dated a girl who was in nursing school. I understand what they have to do for their testing for that. That's hard. Let me just read a book by Maya Angelou and get an A. Nursing, it's so hard. I think honestly, this is me. If the industries want to have people in there to go to college tuition free, then they should foot the bill. If a company wants to bring in a new engineer, I say, hey, we'll guide you through the process and we'll also send you to engineering school. We'll foot the bill for engineering school. You have to work for us for like 5 years and we'll pay for it all the way through. That would be a more effective way, and it would be the private sector doing it. But see, the problem with that is the donor class, the financial class, with places like, I'm not going to say the name of the company up there, but the investment firm in Madison that I went back and talked to one time, just on a whim, because while I did go to college, but I didn't finish college, instead going off to a trade school because that field was more in demand at the time. When I asked, like, okay, what's it take to go back and work at this investment firm? Thinking, okay, you've got to maybe go have a degree in accounting or something like that. She says, oh, well, you need to have a college degree. Oh, what's your major have to be? Oh, we don't care what your major is. We just need you to have a college degree, a bachelor's degree. Which tells me, of course, once again, and I've stated this on this program before, it's not about getting people in the door that are actually competent. They'll train you to do what it is they need you to do. It's a matter of making sure that you are in wage slave debt for 10 years, in a debt that you cannot forgive in bankruptcy. So you'll work for them for 10 years, and you get out of college at age 22 usually. So you go work for investment company A for 10 years. You're 22 when you got out of college, now you're 32. Now you're societally pressured, and especially if you're a girl, your eggs are starting to dry up. And I gotta hurry up and have kids, and now I have a mortgage. Whereas, if you come back out of it debt free, you look at this like, oh cool, I'm making some money. Let me squirrel a little bit of money away into here. And I'm gonna start, because I'm really good at accounting, I'm gonna start an accounting firm off the side of this. I'm gonna start my own business. And in 3 years, like, hey, investment firm A, I'm sorry, but my business is doing much better than yours, so I got to take off. I can't be your wage slave for the next 10 years. But then, yeah, by the time you're 32, you got the house, the mortgage, and because you work at the investment firm, you had to get the $750,000 house, not the $200,000 house, and you got the couple of kids, and, it's a vicious cycle. It sounds to me more like that's a way to make the wage slave. But these are the people who are also donating to the Democrat Party. More Elizabeth Warren in the news. I know you're all thrilled about that. Elizabeth Warren warns Federal Reserve is going to tip the economy into recession after Chair Jerome Powell said Americans should expect pain to come with tamping down inflation. From Morgan Phillips, politics reporter for DailyMail.com. Chief Elizabeth Warren said on Sunday that she's very worried about an impending recession after the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell hinted the interest rates will tip even higher in hawkish remarks on Friday. I'm very worried that the Fed is going to tip the economy into a recession. And I'm so worried that I am going to have a beer. Husband, person, would you like a beer? The Mass Democrat told CNN's Dana Bash. The causes of inflation, things like the fact that the COVID is still shutting down parts of the economy around the world, that we have supply chain kinks, and that we still have a war going on in Ukraine that drives up the cost of energy, and that we still have these giant corporations that are engaging in price gouging. There's nothing in raising the interest rates, nothing in Jerome Powell's tool bag that directly deals with those, Warren added. No video of that, unfortunately. Although it looks like somebody was there trying to take video. Powell said during a symposium in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, interest rates would keep rising sharply for quite some time as the Fed worked to rein in stubbornly high inflation. We printed off another $1 billion to go to the Ukraine. $3 billion, I'm sorry. Oh, hey, we just printed off $300 billion to go tackle the student loan crisis, which might rise up to $600,000. I wonder why inflation is coming and hurting so much right now. Oh, yeah, you know what? No, it's those stupid little people. We better make sure they can't go and buy a house or start a new business. Alright, got a pair back-to-back from the Hill. Department of Transportation declares regional emergency following BP refinery fire in Indiana. From Jared Gons. A Department of Transportation agency declared a regional energy emergency for 4 Midwestern states on Saturday after a fire at an oil refinery in Indiana forced a facility to shut down. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration made the declaration to address the needs of the immediate transportation of gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel for Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The declaration allows the states to be exempt from certain federal regulations that manage the emergency. Well, you know what would really improve the economy right now if you just didn't bring those regulations back? But look at a Democrat admin to repeal regulations on a permanent level. It will permit motor carriers and drivers providing direct related assistance to the impacted states not to abide by regulations setting a maximum driving time. The declaration states that drivers are required to take a 10-hour break when moving an emergency from emergency relief efforts to normal operations if the total amount of time they engage in emergency relief efforts exceeds 14 hours. This regulation also applies if the total amount of time combined from emergency relief and normal operations exceeds 14 hours. Reuters reported on Wednesday that BP shut down some of its units at Whiting, Indiana refinery due to an electrical fire. The fire was extinguished and the company said it was deciding when the affected units would restart. There were no injuries. The refinery handles more than 430,000 barrels per day according to Reuters. It provides about 20 to 25% of the refined gas, diesel, and jet fuel that the 4 states collectively use. Whiting is located on Lake Michigan, near the state's border with Illinois. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer issued an executive order Saturday to exempt motor carriers from driving and drivers transporting gas and diesel from the maximum weekly driving and on-duty limits. The order also accelerates the transition to the fall fuel supply and takes advantage of existing stocks of fuel. So once again, you're going to have your ethanol blend again. One of the things, and I mean this continues to be a sticking point for me, is the FMCSA and the DOT, which typically have their hands in each other's pants, are doing less about, making sure that more drivers can stay out on the road for longer, potentially leading to fatigue and crashes, when really, honestly, they should be making it easier for people to run out and get a CDL and get into a truck. And that seems to have been a challenge throughout this entire presidency, is the desire and the need to get people out into the trucks. I've debated it again. I've debated going out and getting into a truck. Maybe doing something on a Monday. Maybe a 1 day a week thing, going out, getting a truck and run it around for a day, do a little bit of LTL and call it a day on the week, because I've got my regular job. But if I've got Mondays off, get 14 hours, get paid a little bit by the mile or by the hour perhaps, bank a little bit more extra money, and off you go, But I don't think the answer is to let people go out for 20 hours a day driving gas either. Let's grab one from The Hill. EVs won't save us from climate change. This is also an op-ed by The Hill. The opinions put forward by the opinion writer are not necessarily the opinions of The Hill or its subsidiaries, nor are they the opinions of turnsofpagesproductions.com or Contemporary. This is from Robert Bryce. The leading Democratic contenders for the White House love electric vehicles. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Kamala Harris have all released plans that require the rapid electrification of the transportation sector. During last week's CNN town hall on climate change, the former Vice President Biden declared the U.S. should get internal combustion engine vehicles off the road, and that by pushing EV development, we will own the market, man. We'll be creating jobs. Andrew Yang said, "We're all going to love driving EVs." He said the federal government would help consumers buy an electric car, and we will offer to buy their clunker. You get anywhere close to my clunker, we're going to have problems. That's right. Andrew Yang is going to tell you what you're going to love. It doesn't matter what you think. Andrew Yang is going to tell you what you're going to love. While there's no doubt EVs are politically popular, they won't save us from climate change. Sure, EV sales are growing, but look at the numbers. Shows that American drivers aren't giving up their clunkers. Gasoline sales are at record levels, and any attempt to convert the U.S. auto sector to EVs will overwhelm global markets in commodities such as cobalt and copper. Last year, U.S. consumers purchased about 17.3 million vehicles. Of that number, EVs accounted for 361,000, or roughly 2% of the total. Data from InsideEVs.com suggests that 2019 sales will exceed last year's numbers, but even if the domestic EV fleet grows tenfold or more, it won't make much of a dent in the U.S. oil demand. Last month, U.S. gasoline demand hit a record 9.93 million barrels per day. Keep in mind that gasoline accounts for about half of domestic oil use, which is about 20.4 million barrels per day. What would it take to cut gasoline use by a third? Let's do the math. Assume an average U.S. car is driven 15,000 miles per year and gets 30 miles per gallon. I wish. I drive like 5,000 miles a year and get 20 miles per gallon. That means it consumes about 500 gallons per year. Each additional 1 million EVs that are added to the U.S. fleet will save about 500 million gallons of gasoline per year, or roughly 32,600 barrels per day. Therefore, cutting U.S. gasoline use by a third would require roughly 100 million new EVs. Last year, about 5.1 million EVs were in use around the globe. That means that cutting domestic gasoline demand by a third would require the U.S. to deploy roughly 20 times as many EVs as are now being used around the world. That's a tall order. Perhaps the biggest challenge is the resource intensity. In June, Richard Harrington, the head of Earth Sciences at the Natural History Museum in London, and 7 of his colleagues sent a letter to the British government that underscored the scale of the challenge. Harrington and his colleagues calculated the amounts of commodities, including the rare earth elements, that would be needed to convert the UK's 31 million motor vehicles to electric drive. Rare earths are a group of 17 elements that include neodymium, an essential ingredient to electric motors. They found that doing so would require 2 times the total annual world cobalt production, nearly the entire world production of neodymium, 3/4 of the world's lithium production, and at least half the world's copper production during 2018. So, there's another problem with converting the entire world to EV. And again, I state, I think EVs are cool, and I don't know that I would ever use one for a long-term type of thing, but some to go tool around, go get groceries in and whatnot, I think that'd be kind of cool. Go plug it in, maybe once a week go take the thing out, but on your typical run, back and forth, to where it is that you want to go, especially if you have any sort of a commute at all, I think the gas vehicle is going to stay the top level for at least the foreseeable future. Now, as innovations go up and further and we figure out the technology of EVs, I do see that number of changing, but as the opinion author here has pointed out, there's a scarcity problem with the materials needed to make them. We can go get iron and aluminum out of the ground or out of the recycling center time and time and time again. And any of these vehicles that we've used in the past can be taken over, recycled, made into new engines, etc., and built and renewed again. We have the technology. We know very well how to build a gasoline vehicle, and we're very good at it, and they're getting more and more efficient as we go. The technology is there to make the EVs, but to make them efficiently is not there yet. Furthermore, there's the repair option. Now, this is something that people don't talk about a lot when we talk about electric vehicles. But it's something that I know a bit of because hybrids were first starting to begin a thing when I was in mechanic school, which meant that we had a unit on hybrids. We had a conversation about hybrids. And working with electric motor vehicles, hybrid or full electric, requires a specialized set of training. It's not just like what you can do with your AC in your house, and specialized tools that are not available on the Snap-on truck. Most of them come right from the manufacturer. They're rubberized, so they don't come back in arc because your 12-volt system has the opportunity a lot of times to give you a jolt and knock you on your butt. But the levels of electricity that are going through the electric vehicle can kill you, and with an arc, several people around you, if you do the wrong thing and run it the wrong way. My F-150 sitting outside, especially given the fact that most of it's opened up right now, I could teach my nephew, who is 8, how to start doing basic maintenance on that. And he and I could sit back and do this. Is he 9? Mom, if you're watching, is Pugsley 8 or 9? Regardless, I could start teaching him how to do maintenance on a vehicle, on a gas vehicle, with no problem. Because again, it's simple, it's easy, but even the most basic maintenance on an EV, which I don't even know what that entails at this point, requires specialized training and bring it out to the dealer. So there are some things to pay attention to with this as we go. Alright, let's keep going. Let's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene from the Post-Millennial. Marjorie Taylor Greene swatted for a 3rd time in less than a week. From Joshua Young. Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene was swatted for a 3rd time in less than a week on Friday night. She announced the incident on Twitter and linked to a scheduled interview with Right Side Broadcasting, where she promised to show home security footage and 911 calls from the event, which I do have some of that video, and that's a 5-minute video, so we're not going to do the whole thing, but we'll look at some of that. Swatting is a criminal harassment tactic where the culprit deceives emergency services into sending an armed response team to another person's address, Marjorie was swatted on both Tuesday and Wednesday night. In the first encounter, officers were dispatched to Green's residence. In reference to a male who had been shot 5 times in a bathtub, the call came in from a VA crisis line. As the details continued to be relayed, it was reported that the female was still in the residence and possibly had some children inside with her. Police arrived and the situation was quickly diffused. Hours later, Rome and Floyd authorities received a call from a computer-generated voice which said they were upset with Green's proposal to criminalize transgender surgeries and hormone therapies for children. On Thursday's episode of War Room, Steve Bannon spoke with Green after she was swatted for a second time. "Is the left trying to have you assassinated, ma'am?" Bannon asked. "Yes," Marjorie Taylor Greene responded. "They are trying to have me murdered, and they're going to try and get me killed." The congresswoman said that she's certain the effort to have her killed springs from the same sick ideology that seeks to mutilate children. She's been targeted because "I'm trying to protect children from the less perverted and evil ideology that's trying to maim and mutilate children," she said. And Newsweek has the video. So let's scroll down and let's see some of this here. And we'll be skipping around trying to get through the interview stuff, but Marjorie Taylor Greene says, "Watch, never before seen security camera footage."
Okay, well, your home's got a lot of video cameras around inside and outside. Let's take a look at the first camera. Now, this shot we're looking at right now, that's a shot that shows the cars coming down the road at night. You can see the headlights going down the road. Let's describe once again. Your street
I was
here.
sound asleep.
Sound asleep, and your street is in the middle. Let's just say of nowhere.
Yeah.
So as you can see, they came in. They didn't come in with sirens blaring, but you can see the video there of the cars pulling in. We also have some other camera angles of people walking around your house. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So when you see those cars coming up my street, and there's no reason for cars to go down my street, it's a dead end. So for cars to be coming in like that, there's clearly a reason. I was sound asleep when that was happening. You can see how quiet they came in. And then the cars stop and you can see the people get out and they gather together and they come quickly up to the house, and then it's obvious who they are. It's the police.
Mm-hmm. And you can see them as they kind of are kind of staked out around your house,
yes,
looking for any signs of activity inside.
That's
now,
right.
This next camera angle is front at your foyer here. That's when they ring the doorbell, and it kind of shows you walking in. Let's walk through that camera footage there.
Okay, and we also have to understand the mindset of the police at this time. We heard on the 911 call what was being reported. It was being reported that someone had been shot 5 times in the chest. They're in the bathtub of my home.
And they're looking for a female, though, because that's what they're looking for, a female with a gun.
Female with a gun that is threatening to kill herself.
Right.
And there was also a report that there were children in the home. So these police officers, and I love our police here in Rome. They are amazing. They were responding to this call on a very serious issue, that they knew someone supposedly had been shot, probably dead, maybe not dead yet. They knew someone was suicidal, had a loaded gun in their hand, and there were children in the home. And so I just believe it was truly a God thing that I had that feeling not to carry that gun with me to the front door, because had I have done that, we would have been in a whole different scenario. The front door, and I saw police out there, and I was like, oh gosh, there's something serious going on. It really upset me, because usually, I mean, if police are coming to your house in the middle of the night, there's a serious thing. I thought, gosh, I hope nobody in my family's been hurt or something happened to one of my kids, because they're away at college. And so that struck me as concerned. But when I opened the door and greeted the officers and I said, what's going on? It was their demeanor and just their, like body language. They were tactical. They had guns drawn. They were prepared for something serious. And he asked me, is everything okay, ma'am? But it was the way he asked me that had me upset. Wrong. And sometimes they have to be prepared and have to be very level-headed and calm and in control to realize that this could be swatting and it could be a setup. And swatting is serious, Brian. This is what gets people killed. There have been.
And that's the perfect way to wrap up this clip, is the fact that, yeah, it does look like, swatting, what do you anticipate to happen? When you call in a SWAT team, when you say that somebody's murdered, and that the person that's in the house murdering is still armed and going on a rampage, what is typically, especially with these people who believe that all cops are bastards and all they ever do is shoot first and ask questions later, what do you expect is going to happen at that point? When they come in and find out that somebody's coming out and murdering, they want them to go in, bust in the door, guns blazing. When the person makes that call, that's what they're looking for. Speaking of hyperpartisanship, this one I thought was interesting from The Blaze. California Democrats fighting hyperpartisanship by changing a recall election law. From Candace Hathaway. California Democrat lawmakers proposed a bill Tuesday that would help replace current local recall election to combat hyperpartisanship if passed. The new law would prevent recall vote and successor candidates from existing on the same ballot. Under current California law, citizens can recall a local sitting government official. Californians are provided with a single ballot on which they vote for whether or not to remove a sitting official, and if so, to select a replacement. State lawmakers proposed a bill that would eliminate the second part of the ballot. Instead, Californians would receive a ballot to vote on only removing or keeping the local sitting official. If the official is removed from office, the replacement would be determined by the local government or a separate special election. According to the Associated Press, California Democrats are pushing for the bill because they say it would prevent sitting officials from being replaced by candidates who received fewer votes in a multi-candidate election. The pending bill would only impact local elections, not statewide recalls. Democrat State Senator Steve Glazer said the prospect of a statewide reform has dimmed over time. In 2021, 70 local officials were targeted for recalls in California, stated Democrat State Senator Josh Newman. The senator was previously recalled in 2018, but regained his seat in 2020. So, in order to prevent hyperpartisanship, the governor or the executive of that particular district says, you know what? Rather than giving the voice to the people, I will decide whether to have a special election, or I'll just pick the next person. Yeah, that sounds like that's going to end hyperpartisanship. From the Hill. Speaking of hyperpartisanship, Newsom donates $100,000 to DeSantis' opponent Christ. Where is Newsom getting all this money, by the way? He's a public servant. I mean, I know where he's getting all this money from, but he's a public servant. He shouldn't have all this money laying around like this. From Brett Samuels. Gavin Newsom on Thursday announced $100,000 to the campaign of Charlie Crist, who earlier in the week secured the Democratic nomination to take on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in November's general election. Bruh, it's time to make Ron DeSantis a one-term governor. I'm pledging $100,000 right now to Charlie Crist. Who will join me in helping Charlie become the next governor of Florida? Newsom tweeted. So, at this point, Charlie Crist is fighting a battle against Ron DeSantis, who is probably getting a level of out-of-state donations because he's being astroturfed into being the next presidential candidate because they want a bloody primary on the Republican side. But Charlie Crist, it's openly getting out-of-state donations and special interest donations to go take him on. And they're not even trying to hide the ball. The people who are the constituents of Charlie Crist will have to live under him. And I'd like to see the ratio of how many of them are giving to Charlie Crist versus how much of it's coming from Gavin Newsom and how much of it's coming from secure.actblue.com. You know, that organization, whereas if it existed on the right, would be the topic of shutdowns, IP attacks, and a host of other slanders, lies, and etc. to try to get it shut down because, hey, it's okay if Democrats put all their money into a slush fund and go back and reallocate it where it's needed. And I wonder how much of that Nikki Fried's secure.actblue.com just landed in Charlie Crist's coffers. But if the right does it, they're perpetuating hate, and it's against election rules. The donation's latest shot at Florida by Newsom, who has in recent months taken a more national profile and spurred speculation about potential White House aspirations. He's not going to do it. He's being astroturfed. He's not going to do it. Because he can't win on a federal election. He can win in hyper blue areas. In places like California that are decided by Los Angeles and San Francisco and Sacramento and Oakland. He can win there. But he can't win a nationwide election. He might be able to pull it off in Wisconsin, but the balance between, and I mean this election will show as well, but the balance between, you know, the people that live outside of Madison and Milwaukee and the people who live in Madison and Milwaukee is stark. But yeah, no, we were trying to fight hyperpartisanship. Speaking of hyperpartisanship, from KFOR out of Oklahoma City. Mysterious billboard warns, don't move to Texas. From Alex Baker, Russell Falcon, and Nexstar Media Wire. A billboard seen in San Francisco appears to warn people against moving to Texas. The mysterious billboard, located at the intersection of 7th and Folsom, reads, "The Texas Miracle died in Uvalde." It is accompanied by a menacing-looking figure wearing a hood and sunglasses. Along with larger messages, the billboard also has the words, "Don't mess with Texas," crossed out, and the bottom right corner reads, "Don't move to Texas." No other information is seen on the billboard, according to a report from San Francisco Gate. The billboard at Folsom and 7th is leased to advertisers by Fox Point Media. While it's not explicitly stated, the billboard appears to reference the Robb Elementary School shooting that happened in Uvalde on May 24th. The Texas leaders have faced intense scrutiny over state gun laws since the tragedy that resulted in 21 fatalities, which includes the deaths of 19 children. Texas is a permitless carry state. The practice is sometimes referred to as constitutional carry by proponents. The law allows anyone who can legally have a gun to do so without undergoing training or background checks per current Texas gun laws. You only need to be 18 to buy rifles and 21 to buy handguns. I have no idea why that ad is on the side. I am not seeing anybody seriously enough to be thinking about that right now. Let's just put that on the table. I've asked the Lord for a wife, but I am not seeing anybody seriously enough for that. That is odd. Unless you guys know something I don't know. Does one of you guys know somebody? Am I going to be on the blind date at some point soon? I mean, I'd like to be at the point in my life where I'm getting that kind of ad, but according to posts from Reddit users in LA, the mysterious billboard also popped up in Los Angeles. It sounds a little bit more to me like people are looking at this and saying, crap, our tax slaves are moving to Texas and we don't have the law in place yet to force them to pay taxes in our states for 10 years after they take their production away. What do we do? Oh, I know. Let's scare them away from moving away. That's what it sounds like to me. Got a pair from CNN, but on different topics. Federal judge strikes down Texas ban on 18 to 20-year-olds carrying handguns in public. Based. From Elizabeth Wolf and Andy Rose. A federal judge has ruled a Texas law that bans people ages 18 to 20 from carrying handguns in public is unconstitutional, saying the restriction is inconsistent with the Second Amendment and U.S. history. The decision follows a transformational Supreme Court ruling in June which significantly expanded gun owners' rights to carry firearms outside the home and raised the threshold that authorities must meet when defending gun restrictions. District Court Judge Mark Pittman stated the Texas restriction on law-abiding 18 to 20-year-olds is inconsistent with the Constitution because the Second Amendment itself does not state an age restriction, and minors were part of the militias that existed in the formative years of American history. The same reasoning has been used recently by other Trump-appointed judges to rule against gun purchases limits for older teens. The case was brought by the gun rights nonprofit Firearms Policy Coalition, which has brought a handful of similar challenges against other states, including Pennsylvania and California. Texas cannot point to a single founding-era law which prohibited 18 to 20-year-olds from carrying a functional firearm for self-defense, because not only did such law exist, no such law exists, but those individuals are an important reason why we have a Bill of Rights in the first place, said the coalition's senior attorney for constitutional litigation, Cody J. Wisniewski, and young people have as much right to keep and bear arms in public as adults over the age of 21. Based. Good. Another way to make sure that people think twice before they go out and do that street mugging. Let's talk about vaccines. Moderna files patent infringement lawsuits against Pfizer and BioNTech over mRNA COVID vaccines. From Amanda Seeley and Brenda Goodman. Moderna on Friday filed patent infringement lawsuits against Pfizer and BioNTech for infringing patents central to its mRNA technology platform, the company said in a news release on Friday. Moderna believes that Pfizer and BioNTech's vaccine, Comirnaty, infringes on patents Moderna filed between 2010 and 2016, covering Moderna's foundational mRNA technology. This groundbreaking technology was critical to the development of Moderna's own mRNA COVID vaccine, Spikevax. Wow. With as many conspiracy theorists that are out there that are talking about spike proteins, that's probably not what I would have named that vaccine. Wow. You're kind of saying the quiet part out loud, aren't you? Pfizer and BioNTech copied this technology without Moderna's permission to make Comirnaty, the news release said. Pfizer said the lawsuits were unexpected. It took technology that was 12 years old, proprietary to another company. I wonder why they're suing me. That's weird. As far as this goes, there are a couple things that I look at when I see something like this. One of them is the fact that this under discovery shows us that they were doing this all the way back in 2010. And a few of the more ardent people, the more ardent critics of the government, who looked at this vaccine and the way that people were demanding that people run out and get it, tells me that this actually was a vaccine that was waiting for a disease to use it on. This was technology that they had already, and they were just looking for a disease to impose it on the rest of the world with. But, hey, you can go get your next booster. Ermagerd boosters are right around the corner from Axios. The first updated vaccines will be soon available. As soon as the week after Labor Day, these will target the dominant strain of the pinko pox that's circulating in the U.S. in hopes of providing better protections than the vaccines we have now. Plus, the world's top economic experts say volatility here is here to stay, and women's sports are commanding bigger deals than ever. So, your booster, go get your booster. That's it. That's the tweet. Are you ready? Are you ready to go get your 17th booster, you guys? Go run right out and get that. An outlet that I almost never use on this program. My God, I might have to go mute that thread. 20 notifications constantly as they keep dogpiling that idiot. I've been doing it for the entirety of yesterday. Ozzy and Sharon. New reason for leaving. Tons of shootings in divided U.S. So yes, Ozzy is moving back to the U.K. He's leaving California. Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne have recently said they're leaving the U.S. to head back to their native England, but the rationale has changed, now citing a political problem in the U.S. The longtime rock and roll couple did an interview with The Observer where they talked about a lot, including Ozzy's health and his music comeback in spite of those challenges, but the juicier part of the sit-down was when they talked about the U.S. of A. The interviewer notes that Sharon made sure to mention they weren't leaving because of Ozzy's ailments, but rather because of the rancorous landscape that permeates our society. She says, "It's just time. America has changed so drastically. It isn't the United States of America at all. Nothing's united about it. It's a very weird place to live right now." Ozzy hits that point home. Earmuffs. Because it's Ozzy, I'm going to quote him directly, so earmuffs. Everything's fucking ridiculous right here. I'm fed up with people getting killed every day. God knows how many people have been shot in school shootings, and there was that mass shooting in Vegas at that concert. It's fucking crazy. He also says he doesn't want to die in LA, which is a possibility every time you set foot in LA. By the way. And buried at a celebrity cemetery, adding, I'm English. I won't go back. But I'm saying, if my wife said we've got to go and live in Timbuktu, I'll go. But no, it's just time for me to come home. Previously, Sharon and Ozzy had blamed the soaring tax rates in the States as the reason for hightailing it out of LA. This after famously living in Beverly Hills for decades. The article says they're leaving in February of 2023, and they're already working on their Buckinghamshire estate, doing a ton of renovations like adding AC, an in-ground pool, and a new studio for Ozzy. Their current patent in LA is on the market for $18 million. So if you've got $18 million lying around, and you'd like to live in a piece of rock and roll history, and you can stand being in Los Angeles, there you go. You can go buy Ozzy's house. You can go buy the house in the Osbournes. I think they're still living in that, by the way. I think that's the one they're still living in. So, they're out of here. From the Hill, and we are after 10, so we're going to start wrapping it up so we don't do a whole lot of crossover with the Daily Ignoramus. I'm actually going to skip the Hill one. Let's see what we want to do here. I'm going to gloss over these just because I haven't listened to the Zuckerberg interview yet, and I kind of want to before I go into this. Hey, let's talk a little bit more about Charlie Crist, though. From the Hill, Charlie Crist names Teachers Union Chief as running mate. And nobody is shocked. From Julia Mueller. Charlie Crist on Saturday named Teachers Union Chief Carla Hernandez-Matz as his running mate in a bid to unseat Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in November. So, former Republican, running as a Democrat, against DeSantis in a state where DeSantis is wildly popular, goes out and not only grabs a teachers union chief, because this is all going to come down to be about education and whether or not the schools have the right to go back and do the "Don't say gay" bill, the Parental Rights in Education bill, and they're going to do that by also catering to their Hispanic base by grabbing a Cuban running mate. Boy, did they check enough intersectionality boxes for this? Meet the next Lieutenant Governor of Florida, Chris said at a rally on Sunday, announcing the addition of Hernandez-Matz to the Democratic ticket. Hernandez-Matz is the president of the United Teachers of Dade, a union representing some 30,000 employees of the Miami-Dade County school system. Chris called her a caring, loving, empathic, compassionate running mate who would help him touch all of Florida. Well, I'm sure the teachers union wants to touch the youth of all of Florida. That's what we don't have in the governor's office right now, and that's what you deserve to have in the governor's office, Chris said. DeSantis has been a leading GOP voice in national culture wars and polls as the strongest potential competition of former President Trump for the 2024 Republican nomination as president. Are you sick of politicians who act like authoritarians trying to tear apart a democracy? Hernandez-Matz said in a speech following Chris' announcement. Well, yeah, that's why I stand so hard against the Biden admin. Well, I am, and that's why we're here today, to defeat Ron DeSantis and bring decency and respect back to the state of Florida. Yeah. And you know who's excited for this? From the National Review. Randy Weingarten. You know, the national president of the teachers union, praises Charlie Crist teachers union running mate in Florida governor race. From Carolyn Downey. Randy Weingarten, the head of the largest national teachers unions, on Saturday praised Florida Democratic gubernatorial nominee Charlie Crist running mate, another teachers union head who advocated school closures and characterized concerned parents as extremists. In no shock to anybody, of course, Randy Weingarten is going to be all over this. Why wouldn't she be? The American Federation of Teachers chief effectively endorsed Carla Hernandez-Matz, president of the United Teachers of Dade, the largest teachers union in southeastern U.S. Both teachers loudly opposed school reopening efforts. No shock to anybody. This one interested me. Alright, what do I want to finish off with? Okay, there are a couple more that I do want to get to before we get out of here. But Daily Ignoramus is coming up, so stick around for just a bit more. DeSantis suspends 4 school board members after a grand jury investigation into Parkland shooting. From Chloe Fulmar. Ron DeSantis suspended 4 members of the Broward County School Board on Friday after reviewing grand jury investigation into the 2018 mass shootings at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. DeSantis filed an EO suspending Patricia Good, Donna Korn, Ann Murray, and Lori Rich Levinson from office based on recommendations by the 20th statewide grand jury. The jury recommended that the board be suspended due to incompetence, neglect of duty, and misuse of authority related to the shooting. The governor referenced findings by the grand jury that safety alarm that would have saved lives during the mass shooting at a high school was installed and still remains uninstalled at many schools in the area. Students continue to be educated while in unsafe, aging, decrepit, moldy buildings that were supposed to have been renovated years ago, the grand jury found. In February of 2018, an expelled student opened fire at Parkland School, killing a total of 17 students and staff. The shooting prompted some of the survivors to found the March for Our Lives and gave that moron David Hogg a platform. DeSantis' press release described the alleged neglect of duty on the part of Good, Korn, Murray, and Levinson as inexcusable, saying that the 4 school board members have shown a pattern of emboldening unacceptable behavior, including fraud and mismanagement across the district. Well, yes. If you are not going to put safety features in and then complain about the fact that our schools are unsafe for kids because we leave the rest of our world armed, then I have no reason to take you seriously and you should be fired. Alright. This one. This is based, and I love this. From The Blaze. There's no heart in sawmill wood. Experts trained in medieval carpentry work restore roof at Notre Dame. Based. From Courtney Wheel. Glad tidings of great joy for those hoping to see the iconic Notre Dame in Paris fully restored to its former glory. A team of medieval wood specialists in France believe they have the skills and the materials necessary to rebuild the roof almost exactly as it was originally constructed 800 years ago. The return to the medieval building practices actually began 25 years ago when people from all walks of life began gathering in northern Burgundy to restore Guédelon Castle in order to approximate the original structure of the castle as closely as possible. Workers there learned how to build using the same tools and techniques as they did centuries ago. They also utilized locally sourced materials whenever possible, according to The Guardian. Now, some of these well-trained carpentry artisans have already been commissioned to help rebuild the cathedral, which was partially destroyed by a fire in April 2019. Construction companies looking to help in the rebuild have already hired experts from Guédelon, and despite doubts expressed by millions around the world, those experts believe that they are up to the task. After the fire, there were lots of people saying it would take thousands of trees, and we didn't have enough of the right ones. And the wood would have to be dried for years, and no one even knew anything about how to produce beams like they did in the Middle Ages, said Guédelon carpenter Frédéric Epoide. They said it was impossible. But we knew it could be done because Guédelon's been doing it for years. Perhaps the only major impediment to their success would be speed, they said. Without these modern equipment, medieval construction methods require a lot of time. The process may be long and tedious, but the experts at Guédelon say it's the only means of restoring Notre Dame. Based. There's no hut in sawmill wood, said Stéphane Boudy, another Guédelon carpenter. With 25 years' experience cutting, squaring, and hewing wood by hand, Boudy said. It's what we have done every day for 25 years. There are people outside of here who can do it now. However, Macron has already pledged to reopen the cathedral by 2024 in time for the Summer Olympics, which will be held in Paris that year. So, we may have a little fight going on over how quickly we're going to get this done, but, I mean, the fact that they want to go back and do this the way that Notre Dame really was done, and some of the things that we were actually worried about when they started to say that they were going to come back and do this, and, you know, the cartoony things, the Disneyfication of the art inside of Notre Dame, a lot of people were worried about that, but it does sound like there are people out there that want the tradition of Notre Dame to remain the tradition of Notre Dame, and I'm happy for that. I'm thrilled for that. And I hope we see great things coming out of it. I really do. Will it be done for the 24 Olympics? I have no idea. Will it be done right? We'll see. Sounds like there are people that want it to be done right. And I think we're actually going to cut it there. I think we'll finish out the rest of it here coming up tomorrow. But first, before we finish up, the last thing that we always do on a Monday is we go and check out the Ferengi Rules of Acquisition. Now, the Ferengi are an ultra-capitalist society from the Beta Quadrant. They had their first run-in during the Next Generation, and they are known for sticking to the rules of sale between themselves and also the other denizens of the galaxy in a very, very strict code, which they call the Rules of Acquisition, this going so far as to being their religion. And they need to follow these rules of acquisition in order to make it to the Grand Treasury, a place that I do hope to get to at the end of my life. So, as we go in and we look at this, we go and look at the rules of acquisition, look at how they were used in canon, both Alpha and Beta, for the Star Trek franchise, and how we can use it in our own lives. And we are bumping up on the 100 mark. So last week we looked at the 97th rule of acquisition. Enough is never enough. Because we do need to make sure that we never stop. If we are being ultra-capitalists, we don't get satisfied and complacent when we make a big amount of profit and just sit back and squander it all away. That profit can be compounded and make more profit. We look down now at the 98th rule of acquisition, which is a rule of acquisition that we actually know quite well in our real life. Every man has his price, from DS9 episode In the Pale Moonlight. Now, of course, when we look at this, the Ferengi are known for the fact that they love to trade. They love to barter, and they love to try to become at the better part of things. And if there's something that they want, there's no end to the ways that they will come back out and do this. There are certain things out there that people say that they will never trade or sell. I've had vehicles like that. I've had various other things like that as we go, where I say I will never sell, but, you know, like my pickup. I don't necessarily want to have a newer pickup than what I have right now. I'd like to keep that one for as long as I can. Possibly for the rest of my life. It's one of the last steel-bodied ones out there. Now, I do need to do a little bit of maintenance around the pinch welds, because I did notice the little bit of orange that tends to come off from vehicles in Wisconsin. But if somebody came out, and it's come close to this a couple times, unfortunately the fact came with it that I would have a probably $700 to $800 truck payment that went with it if I went off and bought something new, or newer. But the last offer that I got for my pickup, cash, walk home, take cash, was $22,000. I paid $16,500 for it. And that's something to sit back and consider, because if somebody wants something as bad enough, you can raise the price enough and you can get it. Every man has his price. Every man has a situation where they look at something and say, man, I really would love to have this forever. This is a family heirloom. This is that, or the next thing. But you will get up there, and if it's something that you really need. Now, when we do this, make sure that you're not coming out here and bankrupting yourself in order to get something like that. I've seen many people do that, and I may have been guilty of it at some points myself. There has to be a value consideration as we go into things like that, but if you really need it that much and you have access to the resources, every man has his price. You will eventually raise the price high enough that somebody will part with it. So, something to watch for as we go on. And also keep in mind that if somebody is trying to highball you, to try to get something that desperately, you can usually, on the other side of that, bilk them out of some real major money. And, you know, he's got his price too. If he wants it bad enough, he'll pay for it. Don't settle for less than what that person is willing to give. All right, and with that, we're done for the day. We're out of here. So let's get the outro music up here and let's finish off for the day. So, thanks everybody who came by and checked out the show, chatted with us. Even if you're a detractor, we still thank you, especially if you're over on Twitch and you came in and watched an advertisement in order to get here. And of course, I always notice too that the numbers come up when people come out here and start throwing those messages around, because the more active the chatter is, the more Twitch promotes it out here. So thank you for that, and thank you for promoting my profile as we go here. We'll be back here. I'll probably be back here 9 times out of 10 later on tonight. We'll do some more in the Capital Wasteland, finishing out our Fallout 3 run. And, well, again, I'm getting kind of excited because I kind of want to go play something other than Fallout, both on and off stream. So come back and join me for that. But if you can't, because it's family time, it's 5:30 in the afternoon or anything else like that, come back and join in the morning for more contemporary as we go through more headlines. We talk more about the affidavit and anything else like that, and bring in more of our detractors. I am going to go mute a thread over on Twitter because there are 34 notifications over there on me making one comment on somebody yesterday. So we'll continue to watch that. And if you guys want to join in, go check out the reply section over on my Twitter. Otherwise, come back here tomorrow, join us for more, and we will see you next time. Stick around for the raid. We're going straight over to the Daily Ignoramus. And until next time, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.